सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। So from today onwards we will take up Ishavasya Upanishad. First of all, what is the meaning of Upanishad? What is this Upanishad? Upanishad Shabdena Brahma Vidya Uchyate. By this word Upanishad, what it means is knowledge. Bhagavan Shankaracharya defines Upanishad as knowledge, as self-knowledge. How can this term Upanishad be defined as self-knowledge? So this Upanishad term can be divided into three sub-terms. Upa plus Ni plus Sat. Upa, Ni, Sat. Upa means Samipe, near. Ni means Nishchayena, Nishthaya. Sat has got three meanings: Visharana, Gati, Avasadana. One by one we will see. Visharana means destruction. Gati means movement. Gati means goal also. Gati. The third one, Avasadana means loosening. Visharana, Gati, Avasadana. Upa means Samipe, near. Ni means Nishchayena, with determination. Nishthaya, with sincerity. Sat means Visharana, Gati, Avasadana. Destruction, movement, loosening. Now what does it mean? So that knowledge which when approached, Upa, that knowledge which when approached. Now how can you approach self-knowledge? You cannot approach self-knowledge by reading some books. There is only one way. You have to approach the Guru Mukhena. Only through a Guru this knowledge has to be approached. Bhagavan Shankaracharya in his commentary says, Shastrajñopi svatantrena brahmanveshanam na kuryat Even though a person is highly scholarly, is able to understand whatever is written in the scriptures, even then, swatantrena, independently, he should not inquire into Brahman. Meaning, the guidance of a guru is necessary. So, how to approach this knowledge? We have to approach this knowledge, we have to gain this knowledge only through a guru. So, upasamipe. So, that knowledge which when approached, which when gained through a teacher, then what has to be done? Nishtaya, nischayena, which when practiced. So that knowledge which when gained through the teacher and practiced. How should one practice this knowledge? Nischayena, with great determination. Nishtaya, with great sincerity. Then what happens? What happens to the seeker who practices this knowledge? Sat happens. Sat happens means, so first meaning destruction, visharana. Destruction happens. What is destroyed? Bondage is destroyed. Ego is destroyed. Samsara is destroyed. Suffering is destroyed. Birth, death cycle is destroyed. All delusions are destroyed. They are all destroyed. Sat, Visharana. And then, along with destruction, something else also happens. Yes, Gati. He moves. He attains to that state of the supreme truth. Gati. So, as a seeker studies this, loosening happens, loosening of all those, what you call, wrong understandings about life. All those vasanas, all those becomes loosened and ultimately it is destroyed. So, while practicing loosening, after practicing destruction. And once all these vasanas etc. fully destroyed, what happens to this person? He attains Gati, the ultimate destination. And what is the ultimate destination? One's own true self, the Satchit Ananda Atma. That is the destination. So what is the definition of Upanishad? That knowledge which when approached through a teacher and when practiced through sincerity, devotion, commitment, through firm determination, which when practiced, thus one's ajnana is destroyed, ego is destroyed, and one is taken to the ultimate truth. That knowledge which does this is called Upanishad. Right? This is how the word Upanishad is defined. Now there is another way of interpretation also. Upa, samipe, ni, below, sat, sitting, near, below, sitting. So that knowledge which when gained by approaching the teacher and sitting at his feet. This is another way of interpretation. But again it is the same thing, knowledge alone. There is again another way of interpretation. Upani plus Sat. Upani means combination, combining. Sat means destruction. So that knowledge which combines Jivatma with Paramatma, which takes Jivatma to Paramatma by destroying all his sense of egoistic identity. There is another meaning. But again it refers to knowledge alone. That knowledge which unites Jivatma with Paramatma. So Upanishad Shabdena Brahma Vidya Uchyate. Then why do we call this text as Upanishad? The text contains the knowledge of the Upanishad, therefore the text is also called Upanishad. Right. Now we are going to see Ishavasya Upanishad. How many mantras this Upanishad has? There are totally 18 mantras. Quantity wise, very small, but rich in its content. This Upanishad is called a major Upanishad. Upanishads are classified into two, major and minor. So what is the definition of a major Upanishad? Any Upanishad where Bhagavan Shankaracharya has commented upon, all those Upanishads are called major Upanishads. Which are they? So there is a verse. Ishakena katha prasna mundamandukya tittirihi aitareyam cha chandogyam brihadaranyakam tatha. 10 are there. Which are they? Isha, Kena, Katha, Prasna, Munda, Mandukya, Tittiri. Tittiri means Taittiriya Upanishad. Aitareyam cha Chandogyam Brihadaranyakam. So these are the 10. Isha, Kena, Katha, Prasna, Munda, Mandukya, Tittiri, Aitareyam, cha Chandogyam, Brihadaranyakam. So totally how many? 10. They say one more Upanishad, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, also has been commented by Bhagavan, but there is a controversy. So all those Upanishads which are commented by Bhagavan, they are called as major Upanishads. There are hundreds of Upanishads. Other Upanishads where Bhagavan has not commented, it is called as minor Upanishad. Now, why did Bhagavan choose only these? There can be various reasons. Maybe that the fundamental concepts of Vedanta are covered in these 10. Maybe these Upanishads are more useful to the public, therefore he has commented. Maybe more clarity is needed in these Upanishads, therefore he must have commented. And there is also a belief that these Upanishads are very many times quoted by Bhagavan Vedavyasa while writing Brahma Sutra. So maybe Bhagavan has commented these 10 for those seekers who would like to go in detail into Brahma Sutra. So the reasons can be many. But the one thing to be kept in mind is, just because Bhagavan has written commentary on only on these 10 to 11 Upanishad doesn't mean that other Upanishads are minor. Minor means unimportant, insignificant. No. All Upanishads are equally important, equally significant. They all have a message and it's the same message. So all Upanishads are equally important. This we have to understand. Now coming to Ishavasya Upanishad. The name comes because the Upanishad starts with Ishavasyam idagam sarvam. Because the Upanishad starts with Ishavasyam, therefore this Upanishad is known as Ishavasya. Now where is it found in the Vedas? This Ishavasya Upanishad is found in the Shukla Yajurveda. Shukla Yajurveda. Especially in the mantra portion of the Shukla Yajurveda, it is found. You may say, what is this mantra portion? So a brief description I will give. The entire Vedas are divided into 4 portions. Every Veda is divided into 4 portions. These portions are called Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. These are the 4 divisions in the Vedas that we find. Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. Mantra portions deal with chanting, mantras. All the mantras that we chant, they come from the mantra portion. What is the message of this mantra portion? Mainly it is the stuti of the Lord. Bhagwan is praised through various stutis. So in this mantra portion you will find stutis of Bhagwan. Lot of mantras are there to be chanted. This is mantra portion. The second portion is Brahmana portion. In this Brahmana portion you find lot of rituals, Vedic rituals, how rituals have to be performed. So while performing the ritual, you chant the mantras from the mantra portion. The ritualistic details are given in the Brahmana portion. Then the third is Aranyaka portion. What is Aranyaka? It contains lot of upasanas, meditation techniques. Meditation on different forms. Meditations on different concepts. These meditations are present in the Aranyaka portion of the Vedas. And then the last one is Upanishad portion, where the content is the self-knowledge. Brahma Vidya is the content. So this way, each Veda is divided into 4: Mantra, Brahmana, Aranyaka and Upanishad. So in which portion does this Ishavasya come? Ishavasya comes from, interestingly, not from Upanishad portion, it comes from the Mantra portion. Now we may wonder, why is this Upanishad put in the Mantra portion? So for that, we have to go a little more detail. Mantra portion is normally meant for the brahmacharis. Because you learn all the mantras by heart. So all those by hearting happens in the Gurukula when a person is at brahmacharya level, for brahmachari. The second one, Brahmana portion, is meant for the grihasthas, lot of rituals, lot of karmas. Aranyaka portion is for the vanaprasthis. Aranya means forest. So slowly they withdraw from active life and slowly they do saguna upasana of the Lord, meditating upon a form. So meditation is prescribed in the vanaprastha. And the final Upanishad is meant for sannyasis, the renunciates, who practice the knowledge of the self. So these 4 portions belong to the 4 ashramas. So now, Ishavasya Upanishad is put in the mantra portion. So naturally, who will be studying Ishavasya? The brahmacharis will study. And why this particular Upanishad is put there? Maybe the reason is, if there are some rare few seekers, at the birth itself when he is exposed to these mantras, if suddenly all his, spiritual vasanas are awakened, he need not go through the grihasthashrama and vanaprastha. He can directly go from brahmacharya ashrama to sannyasa ashrama. So sometimes Vedas do this, because everyone cannot be put in the same category. There may be very highly evolved seekers who at the very birth itself, at a very young age itself, they express all these tendencies. They have all these qualifications. Shamadhi, Shatka Sampatis are there. Vairagya, Viveka, Mumukshutvam, etc. is there. So what happens when they chant these mantras? Something happens in them and they directly go for the highest. So therefore, this Upanishad has been put in the mantra portion. Right. Now this Upanishad comes under Shukla Yajurveda. Yajurveda itself was of two types, Krishna Yajurveda and Shukla Yajurveda. Shukla Yajurveda, the Rishi is Yajnavalkya Rishi. For this Rishi, these mantras were revealed when he was worshipping sun god. That's why in this Upanishad later on you will find the worship is unto the sun. Pushan. In the final mantras you will find the worship is unto sun god. So these mantras were revealed to Yajnavalkya Rishi. This Upanishad comes under Shukla Yajurveda. So what will be the, Shanti mantra of this? Every Veda has got a particular Shanti mantra. How many Vedas are there? 4. So first one is Rigveda. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvana Veda. So for Rigveda, what is the Shanti mantra? Om Vangme Manasi Pratisthita Manome Vachi Pratishtitam. This is the Shanti mantra for Rigveda. For Yajurveda, for Krishna Yajurveda, Shanti mantra is Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu. That we chant every day. That is the Shanti mantra of Krishna Yajurveda. For Shukla Yajurveda, what is the Shanti mantra? Purnamadav Purnamidam. So therefore we will start this Upanishad with Purnamada. Normally this mantra is chanted in the end. But actually it is the Shanti mantra of Shukla Yajurveda. Then we have Samaveda. What is Samaveda? Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vakpranaschakshushrotramatho Vilamindriyani cha sarvani. That is the Shanti mantra of Samaveda. And in the last, Atharvana Veda. What is the Shanti mantra? Om Bhadram Karne Bhishrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashe Makshabhiryajatraha. That is the Shanti mantra of Atharvana Veda. So here we are dealing with Ishavasya Upanishads. So therefore the Shanti mantra is Purnamada Purnamidam. So let us chant that Shanti mantra. So here Pujya Gurudev has written long introduction. Meanwhile, one more clarification. Very many people think that Ishavasya Upanishad is the first Upanishad should be studied. Why? It comes first. Isha Kena Kata Prashna. So therefore, they think Ishavasya Upanishad is the first thing to be studied. First Upanishad to be studied. Now this is a, misunderstanding. Ishavasya Upanishad is considered to be one of the most complicated Upanishads. Not because the contents are difficult, but because the verses are written in such a way that you can have very many interpretations. We will see as we proceed. There is a lot of scope for multiple interpretations, and therefore Ishavasya Upanishad is considered to be a complicated one. If you want to start the study of any Upanishad, better start from Kathopanishad or Mundakopanishad, not Ishavasya. It is not recommended, though it comes first in the list of Upanishads. Right, now with this introduction, let us enter into the Shanti Mantra. Shanti Mantra is in the new book, page number 69. So Pujya Gurudev has given a long introduction. Whenever you get free time, please go through it. So shall we chant it together? Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes. The Shanti mantra itself starts with a controversy. What is the controversy? Purnam Adaha. That is Purnam. What is Purnam? That is not told. That is Purnam. But you have to define that, isn't it? It is not defined. This is how the Upanishad is. You understood? Whenever a pronoun is used, you have to define the pronoun. You have to define the noun, then alone you are supposed to use the pronoun. That's the rule. Isn't it? This is Mr. Umesh. He is a doctor. So first you define that person, then you say he, she, it, etc. They are called pronouns. So first you define the noun, then you use pronoun. Now what is happening here? That is Purna. This is also Purna. What is that and this? Not defined. Now here is a big scope for all the, commentators to interpret. Lot of scope is there. The entire Upanishad is full of this. Right? That is why for the beginners this Upanishad is not recommended. But thank God there is our Bhagavan Shankaracharya, who is our savior, who has written a beautiful commentary on this. In fact, commentary is a must for this kind of Upanishad. Right. Now first let us see the word meanings. Purnam Adaha. That is Purnam. Purnam Idam. This is Purnam. That is Purnam. This is Purnam. Purnat Purnam Udachyate. From Purna comes out Purna. From that Purna, this Purna has come. Purnasya Purnamadaya. So when this Purna has come from that Purna, Purnameva avashishyate. That Purna remains as Purna. So if you see the Sanskrit translation, you will not be able to understand what is this Purna. This Purna, that Purna. When this Purna came from that Purna, this Purna has come from that Purna, and that Purna, even when this Purna has come, that Purna alone remains. Right. Now let us slowly understand what it is. Purnam. What is the meaning of Purnam? Purna means, all these meaning can go for Purnam. Complete, whole, 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 perfect, infinite. All these meanings can go for Purna. Infinite, perfect, complete, full, whole. So the Chantri mantra says that is Purnam. Now whenever we use that and this, whenever we say that, it means it is far, far away, isn't it? Whenever we use the term this, it means it is something near. So what do you mean that? That ultimate truth, which you may call God or reality. When we use the term that, there are so many, significant terms that the Upanishad implies. Number one, something which is imperceptible to the senses. That is called as that. That which is perceived by the senses is called this. This means something which we see. When we use the term that, something which is not seen, something which is not perceived, something which is difficult to understand, that also is called that. Something which is difficult to grasp. Something which is subtle, sukshma, therefore it is that. Something which is difficult to understand, we say that. Something which is very easy to understand, we say this. Something which is subtle, we say that. Something which is gross, we say this. Something which is far, we say that. Something which is near, we say this. Something which is a karana, we say that. Something which is a karya, we say this. Karana means cause. That is the cause. This is the effect. So that and this has got so many meanings. So what is said here, this what you see, this is something which everyone sees. So maybe the Shishya has asked the teacher, "Oh Guru, where has this world come from? This, the perceived world, full of Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Where has this come from?" So what is the answer of the Guru? This has come from that. This perceived world has got a substratum, has a cause which is imperceptible to our senses or the mind. Now what is the nature of that? So here the Guru says, that is Purnam, it is perfect, it is complete, it is infinite. Just like this is also Purnam, this is also infinite. This world which you see also is infinite. This world which is the cause is an infinite, but it has come from that which also is infinite. So this infinite world has come from that infinite reality. If you see this world, it is perfect in all sense. If you see the laws of nature, it is perfect. So therefore it is Purnam. The laws of nature don't change. So it is Purnam, it is perfect. And that's why we are able to make advancements in science and technology, because laws remain as laws without change. Moreover, it is infinite. Whether you go out, it is infinite. Whether you go inside the atom, again it is infinite. There is no end. You can keep on going inside. So this is Purnam, and this world has come from that Purnam. But even when this world has come from that Purnam, naturally a question may arise. Now that the cause has become the effect, cause no more exists, only the effect exists. This doubt may arise. Like for example, like the milk is converted into curd. So curd has come from milk. Now what remains? Only curd remains, milk is not there. So naturally a question may come in the student's mind, "Oh Guru, now that that truth has become this, is still that truth remaining?" So then the Guru says, even when this has come from that, that remains as that, without any modification, without any change, without any transformation. Nothing has happened to that, even when this has come from that. Now what does it mean? It simply means Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya. What you see is only an illusion. Actually nothing has come. It is only an illusion which makes you believe that something has come out, that the world is real. It is only an illusion. Brahma Satyam Jagad Mithya is the essence of this mantra. What is truth is that Purnam alone. So here is a guru who remains in that state, comes down to the state of the student and takes the student to his state. According to the guru, which is reality, that Purnam is reality. According to Shishya, this Purnam is reality. Now what is Guru doing? In one verse, Guru takes the Shishya to his level. Oh Shishya, first Guru comes down. That is Purnam, this is Purnam. This Purnam has come from that Purnam. But finally what does he say? Oh dear Shishya, actually this Purnam doesn't exist, only that Purnam exists. And the Guru takes the Shishya there. The teaching is over. For a highly qualified student, Upanishad teaching is over. Brahma Satyam Jaganmithya. Nothing more is needed. So now the Shishya is enlightened. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Over. What remains is absolute peace. All doubts are cleared. When the doubts are cleared, what remains? Shanti remains. Isn't it? So the entire teaching of the Upanishads have been put in one small verse. This is the beauty. Can you imagine? The essence of the entire Vedas put in this. If you have understood this, you have understood the entire Vedas. Lakhs and lakhs of verses, nothing needed. This is enough. You become Purnam, complete. Now, there is another practical interpretation of this. What is it? That is Purnam, that Paramatma is Purnam, this Jivatma is also Purnam. So this Purnam, we are not referring to the world, we are referring to the individual now. That is Purnam, that Paramatma is Purnam, this Jivatma also is Purnam. This Jivatma has come from that Paramatma. But even when the Jivatma has come from Paramatma, actually he has not come, he has not become anything, he remains Paramatma alone. Even when he thinks he is a Jivatma, he is not a Jivatma, it is only a wrong notion in his mind. Whether he knows or not, accepts or not, believes or not, he remains Paramatma alone. Remember the story of lion and sheep. I hope you all know. So there was a shepherd who took all the sheep for grazing. So then he found a small lion cub. Out of love, sympathy, he started taking care of that cub. So the lion cub started growing amidst the sheep. So naturally this lion cub developed all the properties of a sheep. And now this lion grew up to become a huge lion, but with all sheepish qualities. So now this lion thinks itself to be a sheep. So even when that lion is thinking itself to be a sheep, what is it? It is lion alone. But the lion is thinking, I am a sheep. So what is it? It is a wrong notion in the mind. That's all. So what does the wild lion do? The wild lion who comes into the forest, he shows his face in the pond. Look at your face, look at my face. We are lion only. You are not a sheep, you are lion. And now roar. That wild lion makes this sheepish lion roar. Earlier it was bleating only. So what has this wild lion, what did he do? Just remove the wrong notion from the mind of sheepish lion. You are not a sheep, you are a lion. You are not a Jivatma, you are Paramatma. This is the purpose of study of scriptures. This is the job of the Guru. Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. Right? So this mantra says that Paramatma is Purnam. But remember, you are also Purnam. You are also none other than Paramatma alone. Though you have come from that Paramatma, there is actually no coming and all that. Even now in your misunderstanding, the fact is a fact that you are Paramatma, that you are Sat Chit Ananda Atma. So what is this mantra? This mantra is nothing but Mahavakya. Now see that. Brahma Satyam Jaganmithya Jivo Brahmaiva Na Apara. That Jivo Brahmaiva can also be taken from this mantra. So this mantra is nothing but the Mahavakya. What is Mahavakya? Any statement which equates Paramatma with Jivatma is called a Mahavakya. Any statement which gives Jiva Brahma Aikya, the oneness between Jiva and Brahman, it is called Mahavakya. This Shanti mantra can be taken as Mahavakya. Now this mantra is a very powerful mantra for meditation also. It's a very powerful mantra. So what are you supposed to do at the seat of meditation? As you chant, with closed eyes when you chant, understand that that is Purnam, this is also Purnam. How will you practice it? So the practicing technique is this. Close your eyes and start feeling the existence in you. Each and every one of us, we feel our existence. Existence is something which we directly experience. So when you experience this existence in you, how should you define this existence? Till now, in our ignorance, we have defined our existence as the individual's existence, as the ego's existence, as the so-and-so's existence. Now, instead of defining this existence as the ego's existence, you redefine this existence as God's existence. This is what you have to do at the seat of meditation. So when you are experiencing this existence in you, what should you say? Oh God, it is your existence, it is not my existence. I don't exist, you alone exist. So now and then feel that existence, experience that existence, and then redefine that existence. If you are able to redefine the existence at the seat of meditation, then that becomes Nididhyasana. That is called meditation, Nididhyasana. So after Shravana, then Manana, clear all the doubts, and once the doubts are cleared, sit at the seat of meditation, start feeling your existence, start experiencing your existence, and then bring in the spiritual thoughts, eliminate the non-spiritual thoughts that I am this ego, etc. Eliminate them, replace the non-spiritual thoughts by spiritual thoughts. Feel the existence, define it as God, feel the presence of God in you, and as you start practicing this again and again, this becomes a habit. This becomes your swabhava, your nature, and over a period of time it becomes effortless. And after that, you start experiencing the existence of God in your own self, in your own being. The beauty of this meditation is, any one term you take, either Sat or Chit or Anand, any one you take, you go deep into that, all the other two will also join. So you meditate on Sat, you will find that Chit also joins, Ananda also joins. So what is the end result of this meditation? Shanti, 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 which is the Ananda. Ananda is your experience. Infinite bliss will be your experience. Either you can focus your attention on Sat, the existence aspect, or you can focus your attention on chit, the consciousness aspect. Now this is also beautiful meditation. Sit down and that consciousness in you, you feel it. You feel that witnessing principle in you, the observer in you. Again, redefine that observer as God. Don't say, I am watching, say, God is watching. Redefine that chit, that consciousness as Purnam, not Apurnam. The Jiva is Apurna, Bhagwan alone is Purna. You can practice by starting from Ananda also. And that's what this laughing club people do. They start with artificial laughter. And it is a what you call proven technique. Otherwise it will not be so famous, popular everywhere. Start laughing artificially. Slowly that artificial laughing becomes natural laughing. And laugh for 15-20 minutes. Then sit in silence. So what will you experience? That Sat Chit you start experiencing. So choice is yours. You can start from either Sat or Chit or Anand. Start wherever you want, but ultimately these three things together combine together to form your own self. And the final experience is Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So 3 times Shanti is said in order to say Shanti at the Adhyatmika level, Shanti at the Adi Bhautika level, and Shanti at the Adi Deivika level. 3 times Shanti. Or put in a different way, as you start getting absorbed into that Shanti, the first Shanti is the verbal Shanti. You loudly say it, Shanti. The second Shanti is a whispering Shanti. Slowly you are sinking into that peace. So the second Shanti is only whispering. The third Shanti is only at the mind level. And the fourth Shanti, you are no more there to say Shanti. You become Shanti. This is how a seeker sinks into that infinite bliss. In the beginning there is noise, and finally there is only silence. He becomes silence. He becomes silence in such a way that there is nobody else to say silence. There is Shanti. So now, with this, shall we sit for some time? We will sit for 20 to 25 minutes. Start experiencing the existence in you. Feel it. Withdraw the mind from the outer world and consciously feel the existence. And once you have started consciously, intensely feeling your own existence, start redefining that existence as God's existence.